Hello, my name is Mayank and thank you for taking the time to review my application. This video is a walkthrough of the log analysis task that was assigned to me as a part of my application. The goal was to analyze a real world web server log file and extract meaningful insights. I approached this assignment by first downloading and cleaning the data, then parsing the log entries, and finally answering a set of analysis questions using tools like regular expression, pandas, and datetime functions. Throughout the video, I'll explain not just what the code does, but also why I made certain decision, and I'll show both my technical skills with my thought process. Let's start with part 1, which is data loading and data cleaning. I did several steps in this part, so let's start with step 1. In this step, I am downloading a compressed .gz file which contain a Calgary web server logs. After that, I am extracting it into readable .txt format using Python built-in libraries like gzip and shuttle. Finally, I check the size to confirm that the file has been successfully downloaded or extracted, and it was around 52.3 MB. Now let's come to the second step. I am using a regular expression to define a pattern that help extract useful fields from each log file. In this step, the host, timestamp, request detail, status code, and size in bytes. Then I read each line of the file and parse it. And then here I'm going to line by line through the log file. I check if the line matches my pattern. If it does, I extracted the information like the date, HTTP methods, path, and protocols. I also convert the byte and status field into integer. Any lines that cannot be parsed properly are skipped and counted as invalid. Then, once I have all valid log entries, I converted them into Pandas data frame for analysis. I also extracted the file extension from each request path so I can analyze the type of file requested. Finally, I printed a quick summary showing how many entries I successfully passed, how many were skipped, and how many had 0 byte responses, and how many unique file types there were. So now let's come to the step 3. To understand what kind of files were most frequently requested from the server, I look at the top 10 file extension. This tells me if user were mostly visiting HTML pages, download pages, and requesting other type of files. Now we are at part 2 and I did analysis of question here. So let's start with question 1. This question is simple and it asks how many log entries were successfully parsed and stored in our data frame. I just use Python built-in and len function on the data frame df. This gives a total number of valid HTTP log records that we managed to parse and clean from the raw file. Now let's come to the question 2. This question asks how many unique IP addresses access the web server. And in other words, how many different user or system made requests. So what I did here, I selected a host column which contain IP address of each visitor and used dot new unique function to count how many distinct value there are. That gives us a total number of unique hosts. Now let's come to the question 3. This question want to know how many unique files were requested each day, and it's helpful for analyzing content spread and server load. So what I did here, I first created a new column date by extracting just the date part from the full timestamp. Then I used group by on the date column and counted how many unique paths were requested on each day using dot new unique function. This shows us how active and diverse the web traffic was per day. So let's come to the question 4. Here we need to count how many time users and counted a 404 not found error. It's a common metric for website health. है ना? What I did, I created a condition df status equal to 404, which gives a boolean series and it's true for every 404 row. Then I used dot sum function count the number of true values which equal the total number of 404 error. Now come to the question 5. And this question digs deeper which specific files were most frequently not found. What I did here, I filtered the data frame for rows where status is 404. Then I look at the path column and used the value count function to count which path occurred most often. Finally, I used dot head 15 to print off 15 rows. Then these are files you tried to access but that were missing on the server. So let's come to the question 6. This is similar to question 5, but instead of full paths, we focus on file types like HTML, JPG, CSS to see what type of files were not found. But so what I did here, I used the same 404 filter but selected a extension column. Then I counted how often each file type called a 404 and printed a top 15 rows. This helped identify whether broken links are mostly images, script, and pages. Let's come to the question 7. This question asks how much data was transferred per day, but only for the month of July 1995. What I did here is I filtered the data frame for entries where the date is in July 1995 using dt.month and dt.year. Then I grouped the logs by date and summed up the bytes column to get the total bandwidth used each day. So let's come to the question 8. Here we are asked to find out which hours of the day saw the most traffic. I extracted the hour of each timestamp and stored it in a new column. Then I asked value counts function to count how many requests happen at each hour. I sorted it using a sort index function so that the hour are listed from 0 to 23. Now let's come to the question 9. This is about finding the most popular content on the server. I just use value count function on the path column and printed top 10 rows. This shows which specific file user requests the most and like homepage, images or frequently used resources. Now let's come to the question 10th and last question. Lastly, we need to see the overall distribution of status code and how many were successful, failed, or forbidden. So what I did here, I used a value count function on the status column to see how many time each HTTP code occurred. This gives us a quick view of how many requests were okay, not found, or forbidden. So this was my analysis for all 10 core questions and part 1 based on the web server log. I use basic but powerful Python tool like Pandas, grouping, filtering, and aggregation, all of which help turn our raw logs into meaningful insights. Thank you.